Hey again, welcome back to Daily Dose of Anime Recaps. In this episode, we'll be covering episodes 13 through 16 of the series Dragon Quest Dai no Daibuken. In this world, the evil Dark King Varen is submitting humans and good monsters to a regime of conquest and warfare. It is being perpetuated by his thrall, the Dark Lord Hadler. Our hero Dai and his friends Pop and Mam are currently in Pepnica, trying to find the Princess Leona. However, they are currently fighting against the Dark Legion Commander Hyunkle. The last episode ended with them landing a powerful blow against their former master's first student. However, we know not to trust that he's been fully defeated. Will they escape and find the Princess Leona, or could we see a member of our party dead at the hands of this powerful foe? Before we begin, make sure that you've subscribed and that you've hit that bell button so you never miss an update from us. At the end of the last episode, Pop and Dai cast their powerful duo spell Zapple, which knocks Hyunkle onto the floor. Foolishly, Pop runs over to gloat. However, the Dark Legion commander lifts his fingers and swings a powerful punch into the young mage's jaw. As the two prepare to cast the spell again, Hyunkle retaliates with a spell of his own and turns Dai into a puppet once more before casting a bone-shattering purple scryed on Dai. It seems all hope is lost, as there is no way they can fight back. Meanwhile, we see Mam and Gome approaching the end of the tunnel. Could they come to Dai and Pop's rescue? Just as the undead Legion commander is about to finish off the two of them, we hear Mam screaming at Hyunkle to stop. She tells us something shocking, that Yvonne wasn't Hyunkle's father's killer. She opens a small box, and inside is something we haven't seen before. It's a soul shell, a container used to harbor a soul of someone long dead. We find out that they contain messages from the dying. This one contains the last words of the Hell Knight Bardos, Hyunkle's father. Meanwhile, Pop feels for Dai's pulse, which is there but really weak. Mam puts the soul shell into Hyunkle's hands, and immediately the voice of his dead father comes out. Shocked, he drops his sword and unclads his armor. As Bartos speaks, we flash back to a vision of the day the palace fell. The Hell Knight fights Yvonne, but is easily disarmed. As Bartos prepares for his death, Yvonne sheathes his sword and refuses to kill him. After seeing a necklace that Hyunkle made, Bartos tells Yvonne of the child, his son Hyunkle, will be fatherless after Hadler is defeated. Bartos begs Yvonne to show him human warmth, and Bartos is left waiting for Hadler's eventual defeat. After the fight, Hadler's death cry echoes throughout the palace, but Bartos doesn't die. Then, Hadler stumbles out of the throne room and reveals that at the moment of his death, he was saved by the Dark King Varen and must sleep for 13 years to recover his power. But before he does that, Hadler needs to execute Bartos for his humanity and sense of justice. He throws a brutal punch at Bartos and he dies before he can even tell Hyunkle the truth, though he used the last of his strength to put the message into the shell. Will this tragic memory reform Hyunkle? It seems not, as Hyunkle believes that he's being lied to. Just then, Dai wakes up, and the tiny hero seems to not even know who he is anymore. He gets up to fight, despite being hit by Hyunkle's most powerful attack. The undead Legion commander of the Dark Army thinks that there is no turning back, and that with his body in that armor, he will always be a killer. He charges at Dai and starts to attack him ferociously. Just then, after muttering words and magic to himself throughout his unconscious state, Dai's sword erupts into flames as he seems to have cast frizz on his sword. The battle rages on, with Dai able to keep up due to his sword's magic, though Hyunkle traps him in his puppet magic. Just as he's about to finish him, Dai calls up the lightning and applies it to his sword, before attacking with another move, Lightning Strash. The attack utterly decimates Hyunkle's armor, and Dai moves to execute him before Mam intervenes. Dai snaps out of his unconscious state, and Mam returns his necklace to him. Hyunkle seems to regret his actions, and perhaps now he is finally coming to terms with his humanity. As Mam heals him, Flazard appears, ready to fight. He throws a fireball deep into the ground and reawakens the volcano beneath the palace. As lava begins to swallow the place, Hyunkle disappears. Then, in a tragic moment, we see him again. He throws the rock they're standing on and allows them to escape the lava, though he still remains. His final sacrifice returns his humanity finally, and Dai, Pop, and Mam escape thanks to him. At the end of the episode, we see Flazard lying to Hadler and his other Legion commanders. They all laugh, knowing how desperate he is for glory, and then we cut to the outro. As episode 14 begins, we are shown a recap of Dragon Quest's lore, the legendary hero Dai's childhood, his short training under Yvonne the hero, how he met Pop and Mam, and then the ensuing war with Hadler and his Legion commanders. The episode begins with Mam mourning the loss of Hyunkel, the evil, then reformed student of Yvonne. Pop consoles her, though he asks if she liked him. Mam is confused, not liking him romantically, but pitying him for his troubles. Pop reassures her and claims that the undead Legion commander wouldn't die so easily, though his voice tells us that he doesn't quite believe what he's saying. Meanwhile, Baduk repairs Dai's broken armor and claims to be the Papnica Inventor King, though his multitude of nomenclature seems slightly unbelievable. They resolve to go to the temple to find signal flares to locate the Princess Leona. They find the entrance to the underground basement of the temple, though it's covered in debris from the collapsed temple. Dai casts Frizz on his sword and tries to destroy the debris with an insanely powerful attack of his, and it works. Though foolishly, his fire attack ignites all of the gunpowder at the bottom of the basement, and all of the flares erupt into the sky. They think their plan was wasted by Dai's naivete, though in the distance they see the Papnica balloon ship, the royal family's mode of transport. On board the ship is a strange woman with a pious aura. Immediately, Dai and Pop are infatuated with her, and Baduk introduces her as Lady Amy of the Papnica Troika. We find out that Leona is with the rest of the Papnica Troika, which prompts Dai to immediately ask if she's okay. Baduk informs the lady that Dai, Pop, and Mam defeated the Undead Legion, and Dai shows Amy the weapon from the Papnica royal family as evidence. Pop begins flirting with Lady Amy, which seems to annoy Mam. They approach Valge Island, where the Princess Leona hides, and the waters are infested with the giant Valge whirlpool. On the island, chaos has begun as the soldiers fight over rations. Princess Leona swiftly dispels any squabbles between the soldiers, and we see how much respect she commands. We find out that the soldiers' only hope is Dai, and that's what is keeping them going. Just then, we hear an eerily familiar voice, Blizzblaze General Flazzard. He attacks two soldiers, and the Papnica Troika steps in to protect the princess. We meet Apollo and Marin, who swear to protect the princess with their lives. They plan to hit Flazzard with controlled temperature attacks to each side to counter his control of both fire and ice. Then, suddenly, we find out that he's absorbing their magical spell energy. Apollo casts Insulate to protect against Flazzard's temperature-based attacks, though Flazzard casts a powerful five-finger flare attack to destroy the protection spell and seriously harm Apollo. Then, Flazzard brutally throws Marin across the room before stomping on Apollo's burn wounds. We are finally seeing the true, brutal force of Flazzard's magic and fighting style, and he goes to execute the princess before we see Dai's legendary Papnica knife fly into the back of the Blizzblaze Legion commander's arm. Leona recognizes it as a weapon she gave Dai, and we prepare for another legendary fight between the two powerful opponents. This ends the 14th episode of Dragon Quest, and we roll swiftly into the next. Episode 15 starts, and Flazzard and Dai engage in what promises to be a fantastic fight. Dai fights with anger, and avenging Hyunkel inspires him. Flazzard casts a powerful ice blast, though. Dai absorbs it after casting a fire spell on his sword. He uses his magic sword to attack Flazzard with a fire-earth attack and slashes off his ice arm. We see that Flazzard is afraid, and he resolves to use his trump card to achieve victory. Meanwhile, Pop, Mam, and Amy arrive to help Apollo and Marin. Dai warns Pop not to let his guard down, while Flazzard laughs maniacally. The Blizzblaze Legion commander regrows his arm, and a dangerous purple magic swells around him as he prepares to explode with his Blizzblaze shrapnel eruption attack. The shockwaves throw back all the heroes, and shrapnel obliterates them all. Leona is passed out on the floor, though Flazzard reveals that the attack doubled as a signal to his legion to begin an infernal attack. The volcano resting on the island begins to erupt, and a giant spear of black rock launches into the sky, while simultaneously a giant shard of ice heads for the skies too. With the Dark Flame Spire and Dark Ice Spire now towering over the island, Flazzard begins to fire purple bolts from the two at each other, engulfing the island and surrounding waters in dangerous dark magic. The Blizzblaze Curse Field now surrounds the island, the legendary spell that the Blizzblaze Legion has dominated centuries of battle with. Inside the curse, Pop's magic is useless, and Dai's physical attacks have been completely nullified too. Flazzard begins brutally beating Dai, and Flazard's strength has grown exponentially. Towering over Dai, the tiny hero is kicked across the room. Pop and Mam catch him, and they begin to evade his powerful attacks. Even Mam's magic bullet gun is useless, and our heroes are left scrambling without their fighting abilities. The injured Papnica Troika are unable to be healed, so Mam suggests that everyone has to run. Dai, however, refuses to run and is compelled to stay and fight Flazard. As this happens, Pop is held at the throat by Flazard and is nearly killed. Then, the BlizzBlaze Legion commander approaches Leona and picks up her unconscious body before encasing her in ice with legendary forbidden magic. She can't be de-thawed with magic or power, only by defeating Flazard and destroying his life energy which maintains the spell. Dai runs at Flazard, though he is still weak and powerless. Mam maintains her plan of running to save the survivors, though Dai and the Papnica Troika refuse to abandon the princess. Dai manages to get back his Papnica knife and slices off Flazard's arm once again, though he regrows it without even feeling the pain. Mam once again tries to get Dai to leave, though Dai is insistent on fighting. Mam strikes him over the head so she can escape with the unconscious Dai. All of the heroes escape on the balloon ship, and they head north to a rocky coast to hide. Flazard commands the Dancing Flame Army to attack the ship, and Flazard remains in the tower with the frozen princess. The heroes swiftly dispose of many of the Dancing Flame Army, though they still penetrate the balloon ship's integrity. Just then, a powerful magic blast from the coast saves them, and they crash land on the shore. They find the source of the magic, and it's a sour old man. Mam recognizes him as Uncle Matoriv, and we end another episode on a great cliffhanger. Episode 16 begins with Mam meeting an old friend, her uncle, and the mage who fought the Dark Lord with the hero after serving the Papnica royal family. Matoriv, a pervy old man and powerful sorcerer, is an incredibly strange man. The heroes realize he is the perfect man for them to have run into. However, the sour old man refuses to get involved. The old man grew tired of selfish people looking out only for themselves, though he's become exactly the man he has grown to despise. Matoriv then recognizes Dai, seeing Yvonne's eyes within him, and the tiny hero reveals his pledge to destroy the Dark Army to avenge the original hero. Finally, Dai seems to have convinced Uncle Matoriv to help. He teaches them about the forbidden magic and explains that they have to destroy the two spires in order to defeat Flazard. He explains that they need hefty bombs to destroy the spires. Ambidux, the so-called Papnica Inventor King, steps up to the challenge. Pop refutes this though and claims his magic is powerful enough to destroy the towers. Then Matoriv says that Pop is weak and needs to be trained before the battle. Meanwhile, the Dark Lord Hadler talks to Zabuera and his other Legion commanders and develops a plan for a full-on assault on the island to obliterate Dai and his heroic companions. Hadler then tells Baran, the Dragon Legion commander, that he needs to assist Mistvirn in his assault on the Karl Kingdom. Baran is furious and questions why he won't let Baran fight against Dai, which raises some important questions. What is Hadler's plans for Baran? And what is the strange mystery brewing in Hadler's lair? Zabuera then questions why Baran is given special treatment, while Hadler pensively thinks that Dai must be defeated before Baran can take the Karl Kingdom. Elsewhere, Pop and Matoriv magically arrive at Nail Village via the instant transmission spell Zoom. They run into Lyra, and Matoriv's pervy side is unleashed once again. Matoriv and Pop begin training, and Lyra reveals he was once the greatest of all mages. Their training is intense and brutal, invoking the same charisma and brutality of Yvonne's training. Meanwhile, Mam and Dai train against each other, though the tiny hero's injuries are getting in his way. Despite this, he resolves to continue training, and Mam notes that she's never seen Dai this emotional. Pop is now being driven to complete exertion, and Matoriv continues to push him whilst taunting him. Matoriv says that he will zoom back to Papnica, and that Pop must do the same on his own. Pop begins complaining and says that Zoom is useless in battle. Matoriv then scolds him and says that the mage's magic is for protecting his companions, which seems to strike deep within Pop. Matoriv discourages Dai, but complains that Pop is too weak to continue training. He says that Yvonne could never train a crybaby like Pop, and that he needs Matoriv's tough love to break him. Meanwhile, Flazard spies broadcast an announcement across the island, threatening Leona's life if they don't come soon. Just then, Pop returns, finally having mastered Zoom. Matoriv then reveals his plan to attack tonight, when they least expect it. Baduk has created bombs, Pop has improved his magic, and Dai Dai and Mam have become better fighters. Madariv reveals he has a small fishing boat which they'll use to row into the magic circle, and Dai, Mam, Baduk, and Amy agree to ride into battle. Just then, Pop reappears and claims a fourth seat on the boat, albeit slightly weakened and disheveled after an intense training session. Madariv approves Pop's inclusion, and the team is back together. Pop then decides that if he survives, he'd like to resume training under Madariv's guidance. Gomachan sneaks on board, and Amy recites a prayer for their protection. Madariv casts a powerful spell to launch them towards the island, and then Dai realizes that none of them know how to stop the boat. Madariv also realizes this, but Dai's quick thinking allows him to cast Whoosh to mimic a break. Their plan is to split up, and Mam and Pop take the ice tower, and Dai and Baduk take the flame tower. Hadler's spies listen in on their plan, though the heroes continue in on their adventure to save Princess Leona. Zaboera then reveals that Mistvirn and his army have arrived and are ready to partake in the full-on assault, and the stakes are increased exponentially. Below the Flame Spire and Ice Spire, Flazard's soldiers dance around the towers menacingly, anticipating the heroes' arrival. We also see Hadler, who we might see in action at some point. This wraps up the end of the episode, and we are left pondering several mysteries. What is Hadler's plan with Dai? And what is Baran's involvement? Who is this mysterious human commander of the Dragon Legion? And what do we expect to happen? Will Dai be victorious in his battle to rescue Princess Leona? And could we finally see the budding romance between them flower? Or will it wilt away if Dai is unsuccessful against Flazard? We'll find out in the next couple of episodes of Dragon Quest Dai no Daibuken. And if you're a subscriber with notifications enabled, you'll find out soon enough.